Okay, hello artists. So last week we painted a warm color and a cool color painting. Warm colors are red, orange, and yellow, and cool colors are blue, green, and purple. This week we are going to weave those two papers together. And weaving is something that you can make a blanket or a scarf or a sweater. You can use a lot of different materials. You can use paper or yarn or string. You can even use some things from nature like grasses or sticks. So we are using paper and we're gonna weave together these two paintings to show some contrast between the two color families. The first thing you're gonna do is take one of your papers and you are going to fold it in half like a book. And it doesn't matter which paper you fold, one or the other, you're gonna use both of them. So whichever one you want to fold in half like a book. And I'm gonna pause the video each step and come around and check everyone. So now that you have it folded, you're going to draw a line towards the top of the paper. Make sure that you're drawing it where the open part is. So check that right now. You don't want your line where the fold is, okay? So draw a line where the open part is. And we're gonna measure about 2 fingers down, and it doesn't have to be exact. Make a little mark, and then you're just going to draw a line all the way across your paper with your pencil. That is going to be our stopper. That's where our scissors are going to stop as we're cutting. Now we're gonna measure on the fold. So now this time, make sure that you are drawing on the fold. Again, I'm gonna use 2 fingers as a measurement. So I'm just gonna place my 2 fingers here along the edge and I'm gonna make a little mark. And you don't have to draw a line. We're gonna be cutting later. Now I'm gonna move over 2 fingers, make a mark, move over 2 fingers, make a mark, and I'm just gonna finish that along the way. When you get to the end, if your 2 fingers make a very skinny line, just kind of split the difference so that you don't have anything that's too thin. It makes the paper tear a little bit when you're weaving. So I will pause the video and come around and check. Okay, now we're gonna do some cutting. So again, make sure that the fold where several lines are at the bottom because that's where you're gonna cut from. You're gonna start cutting on the fold. Make sure that your stopper line is at the top. So just take your scissors, start on your line that you drew, cut straight up and stop when you get to that stopper line. So again, start on the fold, cut on the line, stop when you get to the stopper line. So I'm gonna finish this and then you are going to cut yours very carefully. Make sure you stop or you're going to cut your paper apart. And I will pause the video and come around and check. Okay, now we have our paper cut and this is called the warp. Warp is in weaving what you weave on. We're weaving on to a paper loom that we made, and this is going to be our warp. These strings that go up and down or vertical are called the warp, and that's what you weave into. So the first thing that I want you to do is open that up, and then I want you to put your name either at the top or the bottom. It's kind of up to you, wherever you want. You can do that. You can do that with your pencil or a marker or a crayon. So go ahead and put that on there so we can see it in your class code. Then you're going to set that paper aside. We're going to use that a little bit later. Now we're going to take your other color. So now this time I'm using my cool colors and you're using your opposite paper, whatever you didn't cut yet. And we're going to make the weft. The weft is what we weave into our warp. And when you're all done, it kind of looks like a checkerboard pattern. So we're gonna have a checkerboard pattern of warm and cool colors. We're gonna do some measuring again. So put your paper horizontal this time. Remember, horizontal means side to side. And we're gonna make some cutting marks again. So we're gonna use that 2-finger measurement. We're gonna take our pencil and just like we did before, make a mark on the bottom every 2 fingers. And you don't have to draw this line all the way up to the top. You'll just be cutting that line nice and straight. So I will pause the video while you do this. But remember, once you get to the end, see how here I would have a really, really skinny line. I don't want that. So I'm just going to scoot it over and kind of split the difference there. You might not use all of your paper anyway, so don't panic about that too much. Okay, now this, when we start cutting, it's really important that you only cut one piece of paper at a time. I don't want you to cut all of these and then have all those loose pieces sitting at your desk, because in case you don't finish, we don't want to lose those. So first thing that you're going to do is take your scissors and start on that cut line and just cut a nice straight line straight up your paper until you cut that piece all the way off. So now I have one piece of paper, or this is called the weft now. This is what we're gonna weave into our warp. So weft, warp. We're going to do a pattern called a tabby weave. This is a pretty simple pattern that's used in weaving a lot, and we're gonna start at the top and work our way down. If it's more comfortable for you to start at the bottom and work your way up, that's fine. It's completely up to you. We're gonna end up pushing it all the way down to the bottom anyway. So you're gonna take your weft piece, you're going to lift up your first piece on your warp over here, and I'm going to take this piece and put it under. We're gonna do a pattern, a tabby pattern goes like this, under, over, under, over. So now I'm gonna go over the next piece, which basically means you don't do anything, you just slide it across. I'm gonna lift up the next one and go under, go over, lift up, under, over, under. And when you're done, you wanna slide it all the way to the bottom and make sure that it's not hanging out either one of the ends. So just kind of straighten everything up. We wanna have good craftsmanship, make it nice and neat and even. Whoop, there we go. Slide it down so it touches the bottom. So I will pause the video while you finish that up. Now to lock this in, all we need is 2 dots of glue. Glue, white glue or glue stick, it doesn't matter. You're gonna put 1 dot on each end. So I am going to lift this up, put 1 little dot, hold it down. I'm gonna lift this end up, put 1 little dot, hold it down. That's all you have to do. And that will lock in each of your weft pieces. Okay. So now we're ready for our next piece. So I'm gonna go back to my loose piece. I'm going to cut off 1 row on my cool colors. Maybe yours is your warm colors. And this time we're gonna do the opposite. So weaving is all about opposites. A tabby weave is under, over, under, over, under, over. For our next row, we wanna start with the opposite. We started this row with under, so that means I'm gonna look and say, okay, I was under on this row. The next row, I'm going to go over. So I'm gonna take this piece. Going over means I just slide it across. Then I go under the next one. Over this one, under this one, over, under, over. And then remember, good craftsmanship, you wanna tuck it down, nice and neat and even. Make sure it's not hanging out any of the edges. Check all that before you glue it down. You'll notice if you did this correctly, you have opposites, under, over, under, over, under. And it's starting to look like that checkerboard, and we have a nice contrast between our cool and our warm colors. So now we're gonna lock it in with a dot of glue on each end. So let's do 1 more row together. So we're gonna go back to our piece, find your marker lines, cut on your line, go straight up your paper. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just do the best you can. Now this row, my second row, I started by going over. So this third row, I start by going under. So I'm gonna go under, over, lift it up, go under, over, under, and you can see it starts to get tighter as you're working. It just means that you're locking all your pieces in and it's getting nice and sturdy as you go. When you're done, push it all the way down, check both of your sides and make sure they're not hanging off the end. And then the last thing we do is lock it in. You wanna lock each piece in as you're weaving. You wanna weave one at a time and lock it in with glue. Otherwise, when we turn these in onto the drying rack, your pieces can fall out. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so I will pause the video and let you finish up to the top, and then I will show you what we do when we're finished. All right, once you get to the top of your weaving, you have to kind of look and see how much space you have. You might have a really small area left, or you might have a thicker area left that's about the size of your row. So you have to kind of look at it and almost do a little bit of measuring in your head. So when I cut this, before I weave it, I'm going to kind of check and make sure that that will fit in there, that it's not too wide or too skinny. We don't want to have a big blank space. So this is the last piece. It's a little bit harder to weave because it's really tight in there. So you're gonna have to be patient and kind of work with it a little bit. You don't want to rip your paper. You can see I just ripped mine a little bit, and that's what you don't want to happen. So be patient, bend the paper if you need to, but go really gentle so that you're not ruining your weaving. You don't want to rip it because it could fall apart. So once you get that last piece in there, make sure it's nice and neat and even. All of your rows should kind of line up on the edges, and then just lock that last piece in with your 2 dots of glue, okay? When we're finished and your whole weaving is finished, you might have a little bit of scraps left over. You can take this home and use it for something at home. It's yours to keep. And then we're going to mount this onto a larger piece of construction paper just to give it a nice background. So that is weaving. Great job.